Hi guys, welcome to this episode of the Trainer Feed. Our guest today will be Kristin Marzullo. She's a good friend of ours, a colleague who used to work at Equinox with us. Let's bring her in.
What's up?
Hey, Nunu.
Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Chilling.
Pretty good. Chilling.
It's so good to see you all. I feel like I haven't seen any of you since like the summer, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's your golf, the Chelsea Piers, the last time we saw each other, right?
Yeah, August. That's crazy.
Damn,
Angel's
so
engaged now? Like, what?
Angel's a new man.
I'm not a new man.
Oh shit. Angel's like, no, never mind.
No, I'm trying to pivot as quickly as possible. So let's introduce yourself. So let people know who you are and what you're about. So I know you've gone through an evolution phase since we've met each other. So kind of like give us a history of between where you were back when we kind of like were at Equinox and then where you're at right now.
Jeez. Okay. So my name's Kristin. I'm a personal trainer, certified nutritionist, basically working primarily with women now. But when I first started at Equinox, I was kind of all over the place. I had started out as an athlete who just wanted to like train people to lose weight. So once I got hired at Equinox, I was kind of like, I don't really know what I want to do. And I was trying to do all of the things, which as we know can sometimes be overwhelming and not really allow you to niche down. So I think it was when I found bodybuilding that I kind of stepped into this role of like, okay, well, I want to empower women to be stronger and to understand like how their bodies are meant to move and how nutrition is supposed to help them be healthy, and things like that. So I competed in 2018 and then again in 2019, and Angel actually took me through my training for the 2019 season. And then after that wrapped up, 2020 happened and Corona happened, and I kind of realized there was a bigger market out in the like online industry, which is something I had always really wanted to do. I kind of wanted to step into online so that I could reach more people. So Corona really just allowed me to focus more on that. And now I'm just a full-time online trainer and nutritionist working primarily with women. And I created my own online program. It's a 12-week long program that I take people through, basically teaching them how to eat normally and how to avoid diet culture, things like that. I create customized workout programs for them to really teach them like what strength training can do for their bodies and everything like that. And that's where we are now.
That's a great intro. That kind of like recapped a lot of milestones that I remember vividly.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted like for my own personal mind, I wanted to know what the connection was. How did you get to like, what was that milestone that you reached where you just said, I need to take more control of the nutrition aspect of it? And how did that come about? And then how has that impacted you?
Yeah, that was for sure once I got involved in bodybuilding. The second competition, the first competition, I had a coach who I don't personally believe knew anything about nutrition. So I was eating the same things every day for 4 months. And that was miserable. And obviously my body didn't really change all that much. I just dropped some weight, which ended up being muscle and fat, which is obviously not what you want to do when you're preparing for a competition. So then the second time around, I reached out to a registered dietitian who was like, oh, we do flexible dieting. And I was like, what the heck is flexible dieting? And he basically taught me how I can eat the things that I want to eat while still hitting what's important, like macronutrients, micronutrients, things like that, and then still being able to fit in these fun foods when you want to, as long as you're still hitting these goals along the way. And once I saw the way that my body was changing, how good I felt from the inside out, I was like, I don't understand why not everybody is doing this. Why aren't we teaching this? So I basically asked him as many questions as I could as he was taking me through this competition prep, and essentially learned what flexible dieting was. And now I kind of have my own spin on it too, because obviously you don't want people to diet as hard as bodybuilders do. So I basically teach women how to eat at a maintenance level of calories and just enjoy life and food and be able to see how their body can change as they're doing that, primarily getting stronger. But
That's awesome. That's awesome that you focused on that too. I feel like a lot of trainers get almost forced into weight loss and forced into working on the body of the person in terms of like what it looks like, as opposed to what it moves like and what it feels like day to day, which is weird, right? But part of that is probably marketing. Everything in the fitness industry is look like this, look like this, do this, look like that. For both male and females. I think females get the brunt of it on a lot, in a lot of ways when it comes to that. But that's interesting that you kind of like moved into that space. And I'm proud of you for doing that. It's awesome.
Oh, thanks. I think, do you remember we had this conversation like right before the end of my prep? I was like, when I start gaining weight again, are people going to take me seriously anymore? Like, are they just following along because of the shreds and like the muscles and everything like that? And kind of had like one of my many nervous breakdowns where I was like, I'm not going to be able to fit in the fitness space anymore if I don't look the part. But as I came out of that and gained my health back, I was like, I really don't care if people don't listen to me for not looking a certain way, because that's not what matters. That's not where like my knowledge is. My knowledge isn't in how can I do it for me. It's how can I help you? And I realized in marketing that people actually were more attracted. They were like, yeah, I don't really want to look like a bodybuilder. I just want to be healthy from the inside out. And then that's when I started really attracting the clients that I love to work with now.
Cool. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Let's think.
Let's pivot towards like personal training. What was your process like for you starting to work as a personal trainer? Like when you first got hired, what was that experience like for you?
That was terrifying because I came from a soccer background, and sorry, I don't know if you can hear the trucks going by.
Okay, we can edit that out.
I came from a soccer background, and there is absolutely zero emphasis on strength training when you're playing soccer. It was like hit the gym and run the track 5 times. I was like, oh, okay, cool, I can do that. So then when I got hired at Equinox, I was like, okay, I need to get stronger if I'm going to teach people how to get stronger. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but I remember the first day I ever stepped out on the floor, everybody was like, oh, this girl does not know what she's doing. And so many different trainers came up to me and they were like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. And like little Kristin was like, I don't ever want to do this again. And like tried really hard to like go back in my shell and be like, I'm not doing this. But it was actually Kelly who like sat down beside me one day in the break room and was like, I think you have this potential to be a really great trainer. I want to help you. And he basically taught me strength training. And then I was like, this is incredible. Like I felt so good. I felt so empowered every time I stepped out on the floor. I was like, I'm a beast now. I wasn't then, I am now. But it was definitely a crazy process from like not knowing anything, almost like shock that I went through, to like being taught like what proper movement is, what proper strength training actually looks like. Getting away from the cardio and really just focusing on how to be stronger was huge too.
It's humbling though. 76th Street, where we all train, has a double-edged sword where it's at least when we were all there, it's that family-esque sort of feel. But if you were doing something, and this is not to say you're doing something dumb, but if anyone does something dumb or if someone does something that could be done in a different way, they're pretty quick to say, why are you doing this? Or, and I think it's out of love though. I think you, like you just said, Kelly said, oh, you have potential. Here's how we can steer you to get to where you're potentially able to get to and what your potential would unfold for. And I think that similar to what you're saying, we can all find experiences where X amount of trainers or specific individuals taught us things that we still use to this day.
100%. Kelly taught me how to squat, and now it's like I can't stop. So, and
so you do.
People come up to me in their gym and they're like, "How do you lift so much?" And I'm like, "I wish you knew where I started from."
Yeah, it's never what you see is never the finished or starting product, right? It's always a process.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like I'm still growing and evolving every day, and I think that's like one of my favorite parts about fitness is it's a journey and it's not a destination, which is also what I try and teach people. Like you can always get better little by little. Never feel like there is this like end point, especially when it comes to women. And Angel kind of touched on this. They expect to like look a certain way in like 30 days. They're like, this is what I want to look like in 30 days. And you're like,
2
that's
weeks.
great. Yeah. You're like, that's great. It's not going to happen. Let me teach you like how you can get there. And like, let's build the building blocks first.
And we've we would have surely mentioned this in previous episodes, I think, where what 30-day transformation might look like for client A versus client B, and they might both be female, might both be 30, all right, and could have the same genetics, everything, but just there's some minor variables in terms of one has a kid or one has a different kind of job. There's never the ideal. I think even with twins, you could find some differences, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I feel like I really have to teach women, because they get so comparative. They're like, I want to look like her. I want to look like her. And I'm like, listen, you could eat exactly what she's eating, train exactly the way she's training. You're never going to look like her. Like, your DNA, your makeup is completely different.
Right.
And women also forget that like your dieting history plays a huge role in how well your body is going to respond. And most women have attempted a diet by like the age of 16. So it's like, those are barriers that I have to work through with them first to like make them understand, like, yeah, we can get you where you want to go, but like, we have to set you up for that success first. Stop paying attention to her chapter 15. We're on chapter 1 here.
Yeah, that's the other thing. They see the end product and they want to rush to it, right? Which is understandable, but it's not like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I think it takes a lot longer than most people think. So getting people to buy into that can be a struggle.
It's a process. Yeah. Sorry, Andrew, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I was actually going to go off that. So speaking to that point, what were some of the lessons that you might have learned from some of your clients, right? And it might not have been a lesson where they explicitly tell you X, Y, and Z, but it could be an experiential one where you take them through a process and then they reach a hurdle and they can't get over the hurdle. And then you both learn together, hey, listen, we knew this hurdle was coming, but now the hurdle is here. This is why we ran into it. And this is how we overcome it. So what were some of the lessons that you've learned?
I think I was never fully prepared for the fact that fitness is 100% mental, just as much as it is exercise, nutrition, all these other factors. So now within my program, I actually start everybody out working on their mindset. Like, we don't even touch the nutrition, touch the exercise until we've talked about where you are, what your mindset looks like, so that I am prepared, like later down the line when they're like, Kristin, I can't do this. Like, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. I always bring it back. And I'm like, hey, we talked about this in week 1. Like, remember, these are the goals you said that you had. Like, how can I help you? How can I best assist you to get you there? And sometimes there's a lot of like big, like self-limiting beliefs that we have to get people over slowly. But it is definitely a learning process. Every single time you jump on a coaching call, you're like, okay, how can we like best approach this? I know it's your mindset that needs to change, but you're just simply looking at like your nutrition right now. So let's work through this together. It's definitely like teamwork in that aspect.
It's hard too, because I think that is a great lesson to learn. Mindset completely is the first step to making any sort of sustainable change. And we don't focus on it enough because it isn't sexy and it doesn't necessarily like sell. No. But it is something that we need to reintroduce or introduce into the fitness space. And probably as like new hires for big box gyms, I can see there being huge benefit of having those conversations about mindset and where people are before actually engaging in the training program. It is hard coming from, like, let's say you're a 50-year-old person and you want to get in shape, or what you thought was in shape, and then you hire a personal trainer and they're like 18. And then they're going to sit you down and say, hey, let's talk about mindset. It's like, you don't even know. You don't even know what that is. But I think it is important for the growth of the personal trainer, and it's important for the growth of the fitness professional or health wellness professional, any way you take it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I learned along the journey, my own personal journey, was like, you can never, ever approach health and fitness from a place of hatred. You can't do it because you hate the way you look, you hate the way you feel. You have to do it because you love yourself and you want to feel better. It has to be this positive reinforcement. Otherwise, you're always going to view like the health and the exercise as a negative. And you're going to be like, well, I have to do this. And I kind of hate meal prepping and I hate getting on the treadmill. But if you're like, hey, when I eat well, I feel good and I want to keep that feeling going, you're way more likely to stay on track with it. So like teaching people like it's got to come from a place of like, I want what's best for me. That's the only way you're really going to see success, and then also stay consistent, which we all know is what really leads to the success.
Yeah, consistency has been a tough, and it's an ever evolving challenge. It's not just a one-time thing. It just continues to evolve as time goes on and as your goals change and your circumstances change.
Yeah.
All right, I think Jacques had some questions, right?
Yeah,
Alfie has
so
questions. Alfie has questions.
Yeah.
Not Jacques.
Alfie?
Jacques, be quiet. Alfie, what do you have to? What are you asking for?
you want it? That's it.
Alfie's our new co-host.
Oh, God. So this is always something that I struggle with. So I want to hear your thoughts on this. So for trainers, well, this is for anyone actually listening. Actually, so for clients, members, trainers who struggle with, I'll say, treat foods this time of year, what advice would you give to them? What would you?
Ooh, that's so good. So the way that I teach my clients is that we go by that 80-20 rule. And the way that we get there is that they have a fiber goal that they're supposed to hit. So say it's like 120 grams of protein and then like 25 to 30 grams of fiber they have to hit in the day. If they're able to do both of those things, then they can start to like squeeze in those fun foods around that. That's if somebody wants to like track during the holidays. That doesn't always happen, and like 9 times out of 10 it won't. So when we have people that don't want to track, I always kind of approach it from the same way. I'm like, hey, don't forget to like eat your protein throughout the day. Don't forget to drink your water, get your steps in, and then kind of just like don't worry about it. Like enjoy the food that you want to
enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, because again, coming back to this idea of consistency is like, if we've been working hard for 4 or 5 months and then Christmas happens, Christmas, what, 2-3 days max you're celebrating, that's not going to undo everything that you
Right.
It's a whole month. It's a whole month.
Okay,
All
then,
right.
then we got to talk. Then we gotta
Yeah,
talk.
because that's a great point you make, where if it's 2-3 days, that's not gonna 2-3 days. Yes, you might feel a little fluffier 3 days post that consumption, but it's not gonna mean everything you did for the last 12 months or 6 months is completely undone.
Right. And it's not fat either. That's like what women think. They're like, I feel puffy. I put on 10 pounds of fat. I'm like, sis, it's water.
Yeah.
And like as soon as we get back into our consistency again, it's going to come right off. But to David's point, if you have somebody who's like raging the whole month, you got to reel them back in. You got to be like, hey, we had these goals at the beginning of the year. We're kind of starting to come undone a little bit. Like, how can I best support you? Sometimes it's the tough love and it sucks. And like, you need to be the coach that's like, let's get it together. But people need that. Otherwise, they're just going to take advantage of you, first of all, and be like, my coach doesn't care. And then they're just going to like fly off the handles. So
that's always been one of my biggest struggles with, whether it's September rolls around, everything pumpkin flavored and like that, or whether it sells. But for example, the Krispy Kreme, Krispy Kreme, you guys get the donut place. So I know they've opened a place by Uptown on 125th, and then they've opened their opening
flagship one on the Upper West Side.
Oh snap!
So it's being all over, and the one on 48th, which is a block away from me, is huge. Anyway, I've heard frequent comments or conversations of, oh well, it's Christmas, I can go in every week, or in I don't know, but I'm just very curious to see. I have always struggled not to sympathize, but to think of a better, like you said, 3 days, fine. I'm the same thing. Some clients of mine, when it was Thanksgiving, said, oh, I shouldn't have this. My trainer will kill me. And my response was, I want you to enjoy your Thanksgiving, but just separate Thanksgiving when it's done to regular life, regular eating.
Yeah.
What if someone's crushing it for 2 months? Let's say Thanksgiving through New Year's. What would you say to that?
Yeah. So that's when we kind of have to break it down and be like, okay, let's talk about it a little bit. Like, you eat 3 meals a day, right? You've got 7 days in a week. So that's what, 21 meals.
Roughly, yeah.
We need 80% of those to be healthy, nutritious meals. And then I'm letting you have 20% be fun. We have to find the balance. If we're not finding the balance, we're like flip-flopping through like the spectrum, and we never want to be on either sides of the extreme. So it's like, yeah, you can absolutely enjoy those foods, but moderation is key here. And it's like, you have to be self-aware enough to be like, hey, Kristin, I'm fucking up. And like, now I'm eating all of my meals.
Anything.
Yeah, exactly. So that I can be like, okay, well, let's break it down. Let's see where like the breakdown is happening. And sometimes it's because people don't want to cook around this time of year. And then we have to like remind them, like, when we do cook, we feel better. Sometimes it's because the treats are there and it's like, okay, can we get them out of the house? Can we not be around them? Like, what is it? And then sometimes people are just like, this is a big one that not a lot of people talk about, is like, you've been dieting and so you're hungry, and so your body is like, hey, I'm starting to crave these sorts of foods. And if that's the situation, if you can't stop yourself once you've started, we actually might need to go back and like look at how much you're eating currently and up that, so that you're eating more nutritious foods that are keeping you feeling satiated, and then you won't feel the need to like stuff your face with the
Right,
food.
follow for longer and with
Yeah.
Sleep can play a part into it as well, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, 100%. People don't realize if you're hungry, your body is going to be like, or I'm sorry, if you're tired, your body's going to be like, sugar, because I need to I need to stay awake, or like caffeine and things like that. And these are all things that negatively impact.
Wait a minute. Can we take a pause on that real quick? You said caffeine. That was like the word of the day. So I remember back in the day, you used to drink God knows how many cups of coffee.
God,
So
has
that changed at all?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, dude. Okay, so I was just talking about this with Brian. I don't know if it was like, it could have been the dieting. It could have been that. I don't want to blame it on that. I think I was running myself into the ground. So I was like constantly trying to get ready for a show. Working, you guys know, like 16-hour days at Equinox. I'm on my feet all the time. So I was crushing like 2 or 3 coffees. Give me a bang. All right, I'll run and get a Monster. Like, give me a Reign. Like, I was so hyped up on caffeine. And then when COVID hit and I was able to sleep and like function as a normal person that works like a regular 9-to-5 job, if I had more than 1 cup of coffee, I felt like shit. So I'm down to 1 cup of coffee a day, and I don't even know if
there was a time in college, and I think I was prepping for one of my weightlifting meets, and I think I was almost done with school, and I would have like 2 of the venti 5-shot Americanos, go to class, then I'll go to the gym, get my C4 on, and then, work out, and then I have to go back to another class. It fucks you up. My adrenal glands were probably like raisins, like all fucking like, it was insane. But like you said, it does play a role. I mean, you were stressed out, and I'm sure the dieting, like you said, especially if it was your first show.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned how the dieting was kind of like not the best. It could fuck up with your hormones, and it could fuck up with a lot of things.
Yeah, 100%. I was trying to I think you guys remember this. Like, I was trying to keep myself awake just at like normal hours. So I was like, let me crash up this pre-workout and like sniff it really fast. Like, I was trying so hard to just like be a functioning.
I remember so many days when we would train, you would just be slumped and you'd be like, I don't want to do this. I was like, okay, we don't have to. He was like, no, we need to do this. And I was like, all right, so let's do this.
Angel, we can
she was looking for caffeine, like whatever way she can find it. She smelled like the berries and was like, somebody got pre?
Yeah. Oh my God, I turned into that person. I was like, yo, somebody got pre right now?
Yeah.
Remember there was so much pre. There was so much pre going around. There was a time where we almost tried to get that jar to like for people to put $1 in.
Yeah,
like get a universal pre. That should never happen.
Yo, that break room at some point was just like pre-workout fumes, just like
it was disgusting.
Yeah, I never understood how people could this always pissed me off, right? Where I think I know who it was when they would. We
all know who it was.
They would.
Let's not air dirty laundry because everybody got dirty laundry.
No, they would when they were doing their pre-workout and they would just leave it all by the sink
everywhere. It'd be everywhere.
I was
It'll
like,
be on my bag. my bag is filled with white powder. I'm like, I think I'm fucking like Escobar.
David's
It was free on the
recycling
keyboard.
it, and he's yes on the keyboard.
Jesus
I'll tell you, that
Christ.
was not me. I was like, I need to get every single inch of this pre-workout.
I
in.
think I'm pretty certain I know who it was. I just never caught them doing it, and it was just
That's the worst. It's like,
Ah.
you
Anyway.
know, but you haven't actually seen it.
yeah.
Sorry to derail that. I just had to ask about caffeine because it was at a
Yeah, it
critical
was,
point when we last were talking.
yeah, it was bad. And it's at the point now where if I have more than one coffee in a day, I'm actually kind of like, I don't feel good. Like my stomach kind of hurts. Like I'm getting anxious now. So actually this morning I didn't have any coffee. So
That's awesome.
I'm a whole new
Nice.
person.
Insane.
I've had 3.
Sleep,
Jesus.
David, sleep.
I've had 3.
Oh, David and sleep. That's a
That's another
story.
one.
That's a whole nother book.
Oh, my sleep. You know, my sleep has been this week. I think it's gotten the most sleep I've ever gotten.
Really?
Why is that?
How do you feel?
Huh? What?
I
What'd you
said,
say,
how do you
Zach?
feel?
Oh, I feel great. You know, and it was like a wake up call a couple times where I
No pun
slept
intended.
a little too late than what yeah. You know, I slept a little too late. I'm like, you know what? This is fucking ridiculous. Like legit, I'm training a client and I'm like this. Oh my God. I'm fucking falling asleep.
Like
I'm
Keith,
standing watching
that
the
one day
client
Keith-
do a fucking like what I mean, he's like 50, so he like, you know, nap time is, you know, earlier. But it like gets you. You're like, shit, you know, you gotta fix your sleep. I'm not gonna fucking fall asleep while a client is PRing the back squat. I'm here falling asleep and they're like struggling with the bar, you know?
Right?
Yeah, your client just dies when you're passing out. I think that's it makes you think of that as well, where am I in my optimal performance, or does
Yeah.
my client get the best out of me?
Yeah.
If it's, but that's also the thing where I don't know. I mean, I'm not in the rhythm of doing this anymore, but when we used to do 6 a.m.s almost every day, how firing on all cylinders are you at 6 a.m.?
So for me, at least, not at all. So I've actually learned through like some of the research I've been doing for this program that everybody has different circadian rhythms. And for whatever reason, previously I was like, oh, everybody must operate on this 9 to 5 schedule if that's what we're creating our society around. Turns out that's not the case at all. And like early birds and night owls are actually a real thing. And people's circadian rhythms change throughout your lifetime too. So I've never been like 6 a.m. awake. My brain is usually like firing right around like 9 a.m. So my body wakes up around like 7:38 naturally. So I've started to learn, like, if I want to be the best for my clients, that's when I need to be putting out content. That's when I need to be doing my coaching calls, is like 9 a.m. Kristin's like ready to go, fired up. Like I need to be scheduling my schedule around how I feel. And I've also kind of struggled this with like the idea of like the hustle mentality or like the grind it out mentality. Because like I said, I'm starting to realize that wasn't working for me. And I was probably not being the best trainer that I could have been for my clients back then. So this idea of like, hurry up to slow down is kind of what I'm starting to learn. Where like, okay, grind when you're in the mood and like you feel it and like your brain is working, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you hit a wall, you need to back up and you need to prioritize your rest, your recovery, whatever it is, your mental health, in order to be the best coach you can be for your clients. Because I think people forget too, we're also humans. Like I know they think like trainers are superheroes.
Robots, yeah.
But we're not. And our mental health is just as important as our clients' mental health. Because I can't give you good advice if I'm feeling shitty about myself. I'm just going to start projecting that onto you. And I'm going to be like, well, get it together, Susie. When really I'm like, Kristin, get it together, you know?
Karen. Get it together, Karen.
Karen.
Damn. I have a client called Karen actually, so I won't shout it out. But yeah, that
Shout out Karen, yeah.
Karen. I call her Big Back Karen. She's a legend. She's got big back. Oh my god, I lost my train of thought. No, I'm really glad you brought that up because the important thing of realizing when you're performing at your best, and that's conversations that sometimes can be hard to have with clients. If, for example, their schedule only allows them to be in at 6 a.m. And I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Gina talking to me about how she made her client start coming in 2 or 3 hours later, and the difference in the performance was huge. They weren't tired anymore. Yeah, I think it was, I can't remember what the client's name was. I know who it was. but she'd come in at 9 or 8 a.m. but I think the client would prefer to go out or stay up late, and that'd be that. So waking up for an 8 a.m. session would be hard. So then she suggested, why don't you just come in at noon? And then it was the world of difference.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's something that could be quite important. And then the other thing I really like that you touched on as well, where it's not always necessarily about working hard, but working smart. So if you're walking like a farm animal and just crushing sessions, just crushing people, but if it's not got anywhere to lead on to, or there's no form of progression past that, it's not that it can't teach you anything, but it's how long term is that? How enduring can it be? You know, those kinds of things. So
the business model doesn't help that. You know,
say that again.
The business model that we all set each other for, especially at commercial gyms, doesn't help that.
Yeah,
everything is about numbers.
Yeah.
That's why I had
They don't give a fuck about anything. You know?
That's why
David about to get his notice in tomorrow, I think.
Yeah.
No. I'm just saying, if you look at it in a way of performance rather than quantity, you know, quality versus quantity, then, you know, quality goes down when quantity goes up.
And it's not. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So what I like losing my train of thought because David's making so many good points. But I was going to say,
my bad.
Why I wanted to switch into the online sphere anyway was because I was like, I need to create my own schedule. I cannot operate off of this 6 a.m. to like 8 p.m. some nights. Like it was unreal the hours that I was working. And I realized my clients were definitely not getting the best version of me. I didn't feel like I was giving the most that I could. Like I had all these things I was so passionate about, but I didn't have time to explore any of them, especially like the nutrition aspect of things. I didn't have time to like study for that. I didn't have time to like do my own research. And so I was like, I need to pull back somehow, and I need to prioritize my schedule so that I can give the best to my clients. And I agree. I think corporate gyms don't care. They just want production to happen. But I think if they did care more about the people behind the production and the faces behind the production, and remembering that they are also human beings, that if you're operating at your best, then so is that gym, and you are a representation of that gym. So,
and really picking back off, and I'll let David take over, both of your points, you and David, where obviously you're rewarded for an increased session count and performance, but how and maybe it's a different conversation for another day, but how would you, I guess there are the first point or response to this would be, let's say if you had someone doing 40 sessions a week versus 10 sessions a week, just for example, when one person's bringing in more revenue in for themselves or their company, but let's say that trainer who trained 10 clients had 5 performance benchmarks met in a 2-week period versus the person who had 40 clients and maybe had 1 or 2. So whilst one is, again, bringing more revenue in for themselves in the club, the other one has actually had a greater impact on the fewer people. But how would that be rewarded? You know, I mean, I think that would be their first response. How would you reward something that's, because it's, even though it's a personal goal, but I think ultimately that's what it comes down to, where when a client wants to work with you and there's that personal connection, it's that's why when you inherit clients, sometimes there can be a bit of a transition because they're so used to the former trainer or a certain way. But I don't know where I was going with that, but it just begs that question where how that is a better quality of training and trainer, but how is it rewarded, you know, because they're not bringing a revenue in. And it's like you said, the model is what facilitates it to be a certain way. But
yeah, so I think the underlying problem that would solve both kind of those issues, like having the trainer overproducing and having the trainer underproducing, is just paying both trainers more. That is underproducing maybe starts producing a little bit more without having to hit that burnout that the 40 sessions a week trainer is hitting. If they're both hitting 30 a week, that actually makes up for that gap in sessions, right? But now they feel pride in what they're doing because they're like, I'm being paid what I'm worth. Mm-hmm. And when you don't pay trainers what they're worth, you're going to get people that are like, listen, I'm going to do 10 sessions a week and I'm going to give it my all because that's what I want to do. And then you're also going to have trainers that are like, I'm going to do 40 sessions all the time, all the time, all the time. And then they're sick and then they're out for God knows how long because they're like burnt out, or they end up quitting because they're like, I'm done with this.
They're done. Yeah.
It's sustainable. Yeah. You need to overall pay both trainers more. Just increase the base salary.
Yeah, I agree.
If any corporate gyms are listening.
I doubt it.
I don't think so.
Listen, I'm going to send this to all of them. Be like, you listen
Please,
to this.
please don't.
Listen to me now.
Yeah, because
don't.
David's going to get that notice as soon as you hit send.
Yeah, right.
Horrible. Done.
I'm into my office tomorrow morning, David.
But it's hard though. It's really tough because, you know, there are a lot of people that, like you said earlier, there are people that are early birds, some people are night owls, and some of them thrive on, you know, producing a lot. And it's kind of like finding the balance of that each person has. You know, like my balance could be different than your balance, and it could be different than Jacques or Angel's. But ultimately, I think just putting more value to the actual person is going to definitely bring about more rewards and benefits.
Yeah, and I think if you get to know those people as people, like if your managers get to know you as a person, then they're able to like fit you with clients who fit your schedule and who fit your lifestyle, who want to come in at like the middle of the day or want to come in the evening if you're an evening person, or if you're somebody who's super early, they're going to give you the early morning people. I think really, again, putting faces and like actual human consciousness behind these trainers opens up a huge door for all corporate gyms to be far more successful, but they don't want to talk about that. So.
Well, I mean, that's another topic. If you get into like the
now we're like veering all the way off.
Business models, which I have no experience in. But anyway,
David Fitness coming tomorrow.
Yay!
No, anyone listening to this, no, there will be no.
No.
David's a loyal employee through and through.
I'm a loyal employee. I'm good through and through. Question. So, okay, so you and your clients and your program that you have going on right now, I think you really try to emphasize mindset and nutrition, which is a great thing, I think, because a lot of it, you know, you only spend an hour and a half at the gym actually doing something, whereas you have the rest of your week and the rest of your day at home doing shit, you know. What do you think there's a negative sort of like, I don't know, does setting certain food as bad and then certain food as good, is there an advantage or disadvantage that puts on a person? Like, is it beneficial to say, okay, this is a good food and a bad food, or is it a little, you know, not the greatest thing?
That, I love this question because it's like one of the first barriers we break with every single client. And it's like, you no longer look at food as healthy or unhealthy. Because if you actually look back in like diet trends, that's really what diet culture has taught you, is that certain foods are healthy and certain foods are unhealthy. And while there is this like sense that like, yeah, something isn't as healthy for you, it's still just food at the end of the day, and your body knows what to do with it. However, we do need to prioritize nutritious foods over those other foods. So what I teach is kind of understanding the nutrient density behind your foods, so that you make an empowered decision every time you walk into the kitchen. So you're like, okay, I know that I need more protein and more carbs, and like I haven't really gotten enough fiber yet today, so let me reach for X, Y, and Z, as opposed to somebody who doesn't really have that awareness yet, is like, I'm hungry, and just like grabs food and starts eating. So we don't like the... Go ahead.
Sorry, no, go ahead. Okay,
I was going to say, I don't really like labeling things as healthy or unhealthy, because I do believe that ends up creating a negative relationship with foods. Like for me, at some point, I was told that carbs are bad, so I started avoiding bananas.
Carbs are bad?
Yeah, so I was like, okay.
I feel like I hear that every day.
Yeah, I was like...
I've cut out carbs.
Yes, and I was like, well, bananas are high in carb. I understand that carbs are bad was like, let's veer away from processed carbs, but we probably should have said specifically, let's veer away from processed carbs, because for somebody like me who was like really diving into nutrition, I was like, well, apples and bananas are carbs and they're higher in carbs than berries, so I'm going to completely cut out apples and bananas and just live off of berries for the rest of my life. It's like,
it's
what?
Tough. Yeah, I mean, we had what was it? A Tori. We had when we had her as a guest, and we were talking about nutrition and how it's tough, you know, in terms of like no carb diets and keto and things like that, and why a lot of those fail, and why a lot of diets in general are, you know, made to fail, and why I think it's great to teach somebody like, hey, you know, it's better to have a better relationship with food rather than saying, okay, shit, for 2 weeks, I'm going to cleanse on juices.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, because I saw one of the Kardashians do it. So I'm going to juice for 2 weeks. I'm going to look like them. It's like, okay, there's a lot more like that's going on to look like them, you know? But do you think for a person that, because you mentioned earlier about counting or like just hitting a certain goal in terms of your protein or carbs, what if somebody doesn't want to do that? You know, like what if somebody just wants to, you know, go to gym, work out, get stronger, and they really are like, you know what, I don't want to count my calories. What would you say to them in terms of, you know, knowing what it is that they should be eating?
Yeah. So big thing is we don't count calories. We talk about macros because calories are pretty useless. I think we all know that at this point, like calorie of this versus calorie of that is very different. But if I have somebody who comes to me kind of weary about it and they're like, hey, I'm afraid it's becoming like obsessive, because a lot of women will say that. They're like, I'm afraid of becoming obsessed with tracking. Usually we try and like work around that mindset part of it first, because at the end of the day, tracking is not forever. People seem to think that I believe that you should track for the rest of your life. I'm at a point where I don't track at all now, but I know tracking got me from where I was to where I am now, because what it gave me was education and awareness. And most people don't have that. They don't even really know what's in their food when they go to eat it. You know what I mean? Like you think you're eating, I don't know, say like Oreos, and you're like, I'm just having one, but you don't realize you ended up having 7.
Wait, but aren't they vegan though? Aren't
They are
Oreos vegan?
Oh, Oreos are vegan.
Are they actually?
There's my Oreo.
That's what I heard. I don't know. I don't know if it's true.
I had no idea.
Yeah, they're not.
It's toothpaste in the middle between the 2 chocolate crackers.
Stop it.
I'm gonna just get all the cream and put it in my toothpaste, and I just start like.
Oh my god.
That's a lie. That's a lie. No,
it's fucking disgusting. That sounds gross.
That's so gross. But what I was saying was that you do want people to track. If somebody is completely adamant against it, which I understand, we work on like understanding what makes up your plate. We all know the different rules behind that. Like a quarter of it should be protein, half of it needs to be vegetables, a quarter of it needs to be starches, things like that. And we really try and get them into a place where they feel comfortable with food. Because sometimes people don't want to track because they don't want to know. They don't want the truth behind it. But tracking does bring awareness, education, and empowerment. But obviously it's not the end all be all.
Okay. All right. I mean, it's tough for some people. I remember I tried to track years ago. I forgot I got like when MyFitnessPal was a big thing. It was a year. I forgot. It was a very long time ago. And I remember I tried to track for a week, and I think I lasted 5 days. And I said, screw this. Not putting this fucking bar in. Like, it's just ridiculous. Sometimes I would forget. I would like eat something, and then like later on, I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even fit this in this thing. Anyway, I know you have to go and we're respecting time, but I have the last question. When it comes to bodybuilding, you know, you've competed, and you know, with all the diet trends and you know, magazine covers and you know, comparing people's bodies and things like that. Do you find that bodybuilding can give a negative light in terms of just nutrition in general?
That's so weird. I was literally just reflecting on that this morning as I was like scrolling through Instagram. I was like, damn, bodybuilding can fuck you up. But yeah, I do. It's obviously it's not the sport. It is you and your mindset and how you choose to go about it. Because I've seen people do it really healthy and been fine all their lives. And then I was one of those people. Angel can attest to this. I started comparing myself like crazy to other people. And I was like, I don't look like that. And I don't look like that. And I'm never going to be X, Y, and Z. So it does have this capability of becoming that, which is why I don't teach my clients some of the stuff that I learned during bodybuilding, because I do think as great as the sport is, and it taught me a lot about strength training and like taking up your space and being a strong, empowered woman, I also did start having these negative habits of becoming obsessed with how many macros I was eating, becoming obsessed with how long I was on the treadmill, becoming obsessed with how lean I was and how people viewed me. There is definitely 100%. There is a way for the sport to take over in that way. I don't think it's the sport's fault by any means. I think we're humans and we're wired a certain way to like feel a certain way as our hormones start fluctuating and things like that. So it's definitely not the healthiest sport in the world. I don't ever regret doing it because it did get me to where I am now.
Yeah.
Will I compete in the future? That's something I've been struggling with currently, because I'm like, hey, I'm in a place now where I'm very healthy. Like, I'm the healthiest I've been since I stepped on stage. And now I'm also marketing health and internal health and things like that. If I start competing again, am I going against some of the things that I believe as a trainer?
What
Yeah.
what would you ask the bodybuilding organization itself to change? Like, what would you do? What would you ask them to maybe, you know, not market or market, whatever you think?
That's hard. I think it is weeding out some of the bad coaches, which is only going to help by better coaches stepping up and being like, there is a better way to do this sport, which I know is happening because that's how I found the team that I had worked with. I was like, oh, look, a registered dietitian. He must know what he's talking about. But there are still these like bro science coaches out there who are like chicken, broccoli, and rice, and then that's it for the next 12 weeks.
Shit.
And they're like, if you don't look the way you're supposed to, it's your fault. And it's like, wait, and then it perpetuates, well, I'm not working hard enough. I have to work harder. When really that's not the case at all. My body's not going to respond to eating the same goddamn thing every single day. Like, that's not sustainable whatsoever. So I think it's weeding out those coaches. However, the affiliation of bodybuilding doesn't have a say in that. So I think it's just more educated coaches stepping up and being like, hey, I want to have a bigger role in the bodybuilding community, which is happening. It's just going to take a while to get some of the shitty ones out.
Get the shitty ones out.
Yeah.
That's like trainers in general, right? You always get a few. It just takes a couple to ruin the crop, and
then you get a bad reputation for everybody else.
And then I also, and we'll respect your time, but the one last thing on top of that is they always seem so surprised when they say that we have a degree. I felt right. They're, oh shit, you're educated. Not everyone, but it's often you throw them with my bachelor's or something. You're like, yeah, I guess.
So bachelor's in what? And it's like some people are like bachelor's in fine arts, you know, and depending on what, you know,
David.
I'm not trying to say anything about what I'm saying.
I was a bachelor's in communications.
But I'm a bachelor's in criminal justice, and I'm fucking personal training. Like, what? It doesn't have anything to do with it, you know. Jacques, though, he's a master in chemistry.
Bang, bang, bang.
You know, it's, you know, God Save the Queen is in his degree.
Nah, but when someone starts trying to argue science with me and their degree is something else, I'm a little bit like, really? Even though I sucked at my degree, they don't know that. I don't tell them that.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, having this will to continue to learn is always going to make you a better trainer than the
100%. Yeah.
Like,
you gotta be willing to open your mind up, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's really what got me from point A to point B. Another thing Kelly taught me was always be willing to learn, always be a sponge and kind of absorb everything. And as I did that, I realized I was like, oh, well, I like to learn about this stuff. Let me go ahead and be proactive and start doing my own research. And now I'm just like, I feel like I'm in a bubble every day where I'm just like learning as much as I can so that I can be a better trainer for my clients.
But you could have gone the other way. When Kelly brought you to the side, you could have gone, fuck this. I know better. And from my recollection, there have been some trainers that have somewhat had that thought process where, fuck this, I'm out. And maybe they are better off. It's not for everyone. The path isn't. But there was some thought processes. You have to have a thick skin, but there's also somewhere just write it out a little bit. Nothing in life or your career will ever get you from associate to the director in a month. Yeah. Unless you're inheriting it from your dad or something. I don't know. Or your mom, you know, like.
But I think it's also, it goes into like your circumstance as well. Cause a lot of the times like managers would hire you and they won't paint the big picture. Then you'll get on the floor and you'll look at your first paycheck and you'll be like, there's no way I'm going to make rent. So I just got to ghost it. Like you guys were nice, but I don't even have time to say bye. I just got to find a new job to do. With that said though, let's wrap it up. Kristin, please, where can people find more about you and how to work with you?
Yeah, so Instagram, K Fitness. It's KAY Fitness _XO. I'm big on the gram. Come find me there. And that's really how I reach out to all of the clients that I work with now, is just through Instagram. So if people are also interested in learning more about the program, they can hit me up there and we can talk about how to get them from where they are to where they want to be.
Show us that tag one time, real quick.
I can't. Okay, so it's wrapped up right now. But
that's a great tattoo. Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of artwork.
Shit, that's fucking awesome.
This shit hurt. The shading of it. No, I'm kidding. But I can't bend my elbow right now. I don't know if you guys could notice while we were talking.
Wait, is that a new thing that they're putting electrical tape on, like, on top of tattoos? I mean, it's not electrical tape, but
I was about to be like, if she put electrical tape on this, I'm gonna kill her.
usually it's just like saran wrap.
Yeah, so that's when I was like waiting for Jenna to get hers done. They just saran wrapped it, but this is like some sort of, I don't want to call it a Band-Aid. She just called it a sticker. It's obviously some sort of Band-Aid. But you have to keep it on for 3 days now. I guess it's to avoid any sort of sweat.
Is it for the tattoo? Is it like 4 tattoos?
Yeah, it's like
okay.
thing that she like pulled out and like had to cut it to make it fit and all this stuff. But
electrical tape, we got it. I got some in my
yeah, but fun fact, my mom didn't know I was getting this, so going home for Christmas is gonna be
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas! Yeah. I got you a gift.
Me and my brother, we got into an argument with my parents about it. That's for another time. But it's the whole tattoo thing it's still taboo for certain people. You know,
it is. My parents are like, "How do you expect to get a job?" I'm like, "I'm the CEO of my own company, so." Not
but
really.
my parents are like, "How do you expect to go to heaven?" I'm like.
There it is.
Oh shit, that's funny.
Anyway, all right.
Well, so wrap it up. We'll let you go. Thank you so much for joining us on the trainer feed.
Thank you guys. This was great. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Be well, Kristin. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. That's so funny. David, you're not going to heaven by the sounds of it.
Listen, tattoos. That's not the reason I'm not going to heaven.
Yeah, I would have thrown that in there, but you did that for me, so thank you. But that was really good to have Kristin on. I really liked how, even though her own style, but she carried on some similar themes that Tori did a few weeks ago. So
definitely, and I didn't know that everybody's using those words like fun food. I didn't realize that was such that was part of the vocabulary. But it's cool to hear it and it's cool to see it. The best part would be when we see fitness professionals or health and wellness professionals speaking that way. And then the even better part is when you have clients or members speaking that way. I remember when I went to do an assessment not too long ago, a potential client was speaking to me about swings, and they said the term hip dominant versus knee dominant. And I was like, oh my God, the literature has come this far.
That gets me excited. I'm like,
no, it's really refreshing.
Say that
it's
again.
Honestly refreshing. And then you see the movement, and the movement quality is there, and you're kind of taken aback, and it emphasizes and it helps you know that what you're doing is not just for the handful of people that you're working with. It's helping the community on a greater level.
Saying in my ear like hip dominant.
Well, I'm glad you made it's so interesting you made a comment, because I think there was a member at Sports Club that had either followed me or found a picture or whatever it was. But when I saw their profile, because when I saw them, no, this is not seedy. It's not seedy at all. No, I liked a picture of my post on Instagram. The point I'm trying to make is, I saw her form in the club, and I said to myself, that looks like someone who's worked with a trainer. Her swings, her squats, her snatches, her presses all look like someone that had worked with a coach. And then I think later down the grapevine, I learned that she'd worked with either an old client and walked out. Yeah, she knew and would walk out with an old client of mine. So to me, that was almost an indirect transition of knowledge that I'd seen. And it was so funny. I thought, oh, damn, whoever taught her is a good coach or something, and not directly realizing like, wow, she walked out with an old client of mine, or she used to. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing.
I think you got to move back a little bit, because your head is getting too big for the camera right now.
And I'm talking like this.
I think this is like the 3rd consecutive episode, maybe the 4th, that you've spoken about your master's in chemistry, or somebody has brought up the master's in chemistry, which is fine.
Fuck that shit. That shit was a fucking struggle for 4 years.
I believe it.
And then the one thing And the other thing I will say is in the very end, I probably mentioned this before, you do what's called a Vivo when you present your project. Long story short, my project failed, but not many people need to know that. They were in, but they were asking me, so why didn't it work? Do you think I would fucking be here saying it didn't work if I knew why it didn't fucking work? Hey, anyway, long story short, at the end of it, I didn't give a fuck. I had a master's in chemistry. I was a master of fucking science. So come at me. When you got a degree in something else and you trying to come at me and say this and that with a virus and the science, I'm like, come at me, bro.
Relax, bro.
Sorry, man.
We're spiraling. We're spiraling
shit.
again. There's a handful of ways that you can get Jacques to spiral out. One is
so Jacques, what would you say if somebody says
the other one's animal flow.
2020, where are all the flu deaths?
I'm not even gonna go.
What would you say?
Does animal flow help prevent coronavirus?
I should actually
do it right.
I should promote that. Yeah, when you do it right, not when you do some half-ass bullshit.
Internally rotating elbows and shoulders and shit.
Yeah,
All
man.
right,
Sorry.
We'll call it here. We'll wrap it up because I know David's also got stuff to do and we all gotta run and do our thing. So thanks guys for checking out this episode of the Trainer Feed. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Yes, we will.
Goodbye.
All right, guys.